to end what you've been seeing over the last couple hours.
Mr. President, Jerome Powell, do you have plans, or if you're back considering firing Jerome Powell, and what's your justification if you're thinking about this to do this?
Too late. He's always been too late, hence his nickname, Too Late. He should have cut interest rates a long time ago. Europe has cut them 10 times in the short period of time, and we cut them none. The only time he cut them was just before the election to try and help Kamala or Biden, whoever the hell it was, because nobody really knew. Obviously, that didn't work, but he tried to cut them for the Democrats, Kamala. And how did that work out? You'll tell me. It didn't work out too well, did it? But I think he does a terrible job. He's costing us a lot of money, and we fight through it. It's almost, the country's become so successful that it doesn't have a big impact, but it does hurt people wanting to get a mortgage. People want to buy a house. He's a terrible Fed chair. I was surprised he was appointed. I was surprised, frankly, that Biden put him in and extended him, but they did. So, no, we're not.
That was a visibly confused and pathologically dishonest Donald Trump having some sort of cognitive episode in the Oval Office, talking about Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, whom Donald Trump, not Joe Biden, appointed in 2017 when Trump was first president. Now, as disastrous as Trump's cognition is, we also have the fact that reportedly he is planning to fire Jerome Powell, or at least making, at the bare minimum, preparations to pounce on it immediately if he ever finds, stupidity or recklessness to do it. So before we unpack all of this, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, folks. Again, Trump is getting roasted on this. I mean, roasted. Community noted on X, a right-wing cesspool. Trump appointed Powell, not Biden. If you look at the comments and the quotes, it's just absolutely brutal for Trump, who is either too stupid or too dishonest to competently be president. This is a flashback. This is Trump in 2017 in his first term. The guy standing next to him is Jerome Powell.
As president, there are a few decisions more important than nominating leaders of integrity and good judgment to hold trusted positions in public office. And few of those trusted positions are more important than the chairman of the Federal Reserve. Accordingly, it is my pleasure and my honor to announce my nomination of Jerome Powell to be the next chairman of the Federal Reserve. Congratulations, Jim.
So that is Donald Trump nominating Jerome Powell in 2017, praising his intelligence and his judgment. And now Trump is saying, I can't believe Biden appointed him, and then Biden extended him. No, asshole. Biden reappointed Powell, renominated Jerome Powell after his term expired or was set to expire, but you were the one who appointed him in the first place. So again, just to capture this.
He's a terrible Fed chair. I was surprised he was appointed. I was surprised, frankly, that Biden put him in. Accordingly, it is my pleasure and my honor to announce my nomination of Jerome Powell to be the next.
Donald Trump is in severe cognitive decline. If Alex Thompson and Jake Tapper are watching, I'm sure they are frantically taking notes to write their book about Donald Trump's mental decline. It is truly staggering. So Trump's stupidity and pathological dishonesty notwithstanding, there's another issue, which is in its own way, at least with respect to the economy, equally dangerous as Trump's stupidity, and that is Trump threatening or planning or mobilizing, according to reports, to unlawfully fire the Fed chair.
Lower interest rates.
That you are going to fire him? Have you drafted a letter?
I haven't drafted a letter.
So you didn't show a letter to Republican lawmakers last night?
No, I talked about the concept of fire him. I said, what do you think? Almost every one of them said I should. But I'm more conservative than they are.
So Trump is saying, I didn't write a letter saying I was going to fire him. So you didn't draft a letter as was reported about firing him? I mean, it's been confirmed by Fox News and others that Fox has confirmed that Trump asked a group of House Republicans if he should fire Fed Chair Jerome Powell. Fox is told that the lawmakers agreed he should be fired. He's going to do it, said one source. When asked when, the source replied soon. Apparently, a letter was drafted. Fox News reports Trump is gearing up to fire Jerome Powell. Trump has been pretty vocal on not being pleased with Powell in the past. While speaking with reporters at the White House on Tuesday, he said the chairman is doing a terrible job. In comments made the week prior, Trump said interest rates should be lowered. But again, as we've talked about, the problem is the reason the interest rates aren't being lowered is because of Donald Trump, right? Jerome Powell made it clear because he started finally, eventually, to cut interest rates in the last few months of the Biden administration. And he would have continued to do so had Trump not created inflationary pressure, inflationary policy in the form of tariffs. And inflation did rise last month on Trump's watch because of Trump's tariffs. And this was the minimal effect because Trump rolled back most of the ridiculous tariffs he threatened. So these tariffs that we experienced last month, the spike in inflation because of these tariffs, are basically a drop in the bucket of what will happen if Trump follows through on his threats. He doesn't get credit for that. Again, I compared it, I think, in the video we did about this, is Trump threatening to effectively burn down a house, but only starting a kitchen fire and say, hey, the bedrooms and the bathrooms are, not on fire, everything's good. Like, no, there's a fire here. You don't get credit for it, for not burning down the house when you're threatening also to continue to burn down the house. And he might do just that. And again, he is open to the idea of firing Jerome Powell, as indicated here.
Are you completely ruling out the idea of firing Jerome Powell?
I don't rule out anything, but I think it's highly unlikely unless he has to leave for fraud. I mean, it's possible there's fraud involved with the $2.7 billion renovation. This is a renovation. How do you?
So Trump has been looking desperately to find an excuse to fire Powell for cause. Because here's the thing, as I've said before, the Federal Reserve Chairman ultimately does report to the President of the United States in the respect that the President appoints the Federal Reserve Chair and can fire him for cause. The Fed chair is not an at-will employee. The president can't, Biden or Trump or anybody can't just wake up one morning and go, you're fired. The only way you can fire them is for malfeasance, for cause, right? And Jerome Powell, whether you like him or not, or whether you agree with his policy or not, has been pretty fastidious in terms of his conduct, right? He's not going to give you cause for firing. So Trump has been scrambling to do this to try to square the needle on this because the Supreme Court has been giving Trump quite a bit of latitude with respect to his hirings and firings, even of so-called independent agencies. But the Supreme Court is smart enough to know, holy shit, the market will be in free fall if the Federal Reserve Chair, who sets monetary policy, is simply an at-will employee of any particular president, Democrat or Republican. So in recent Supreme Court rulings, they're like, well, unitary executive theory, yeah, Donald Trump can fire whoever he wants. Now, probably not a Democrat, but definitely Donald Trump. No, except the Federal Reserve Chairman. That's different, right? Because it's not about legal principle to them, right? They believe in the unitary executive theory as a principle until they don't, right? When it's convenient, they'll carve out exceptions for the Federal Reserve Chair, which I'm glad for. I'm glad that they spared the Fed chair that, but it wasn't out of principle. That was an outcomes-oriented solution. They didn't want the Fed chair to be left to the mercy of any political whim, again, from Trump or anybody else, because that would affect their finances and the finances of the country. So Trump was trying to have his cake and eat it too and find a way, it looks like, to fire Jerome Powell. And the markets, by the way, when this news broke, plunged. And then when Trump's like, whoa, I'm not going to fire him, everything's good, it climbed again. But he has been repeatedly threatening to fire Powell. And now this meeting with Republicans to talk about firing Powell, that is a major escalation. And one last clip talking about having the Fed chair under investigation.
Admitted it this morning. Quiet. Go ahead.
Mr. President, on Jerome Powell, you mentioned fraud in an earlier answer. Are you saying you want to investigate the Fed chair for fraud related to this renovation?
Well, I think he's already under investigation. He spent far.
So there you have it. He says the Federal Reserve Chair is under investigation. Could very well be, a means by which to create a predicate to fire him. I don't know what's going to happen. What I do know is that the Wall Street Journal is freaking out about this. The National Review is freaking out about this. Conservative economists are freaking out about this. They do not want Trump to follow through as he moves closer and closer to unlawfully firing the Federal Reserve chair. Like, that's where we are, though. And again, to say nothing of the fact that Trump is in visible cognitive decline if he can't remember that he was the one who appointed Powell in the first place. Stunning, shocking. Everybody's talking about it. And in the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.